Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, great. Okay, so hello, everyone. My name is Derek Cowell. I've been an adjunct for a while at Delta and at Modesto Junior College, um, etc. Man, I love the list here. This is a nice long list of names who are going to get extra credit right off the bat. I want to familiarize you guys with my style of teaching, as each instructor's is probably a little different, and just give you a general introduction to the class. I also want to let you know if you have messaged me lately, I've been putting everything together for the classes, and I need to play catch up on my messages when I'm done with this Zoom video. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't yet heard from me, don't worry about that. That is coming. Um, also, let's see here. So let me get the list of names, if you don't mind. And I'm going to try my best, which is not a strength for me, to be honest, to multitask. And as I'm writing your names down, also kind of give an introduction to the class. So most of you, in my experience, are not statistically going to be history majors. Most of you are going to uh, are taking this class as a general requirement, and I respect that. I understand that. So, and then the few of you who are, I have a dual faceted objective in most of my assignments, okay, which I'm going to put under modules, are going to be an argumentative form, okay? And as you may have read, had a chance to read my instructions that I put in modules there under the first assignment, what I do is I try to paraphrase, right? A professor I have sat under long, long ago, a book that I have read that I thought was very thought provoking, some type of discourse that I've heard in a debate on C-SPAN or something, right? Something that I think is thought provoking. It does not represent what I personally, as your instructor, believe on that subject. All right. What I believe is irrelevant, really, as far as your teacher and my proper role as such. But what it is like I said, I believe that um, it provokes critical thinking. It also oftentimes the theses that I come across and try to summarize, they also are very prevalent for those of you who are going to major in history, very prevalent as far as discourse in the future, because as you get into history, right, history is going to be rather um, subjective. You select facts right off the bat. It's somewhat of a subjective discipline. You bring your own presuppositions, your own uh, you know uh, your own assumptions to the table, and that is going to dictate um, to what extent you are going to look for certain types of data. So, for instance, right, if you are a Marxist historian, right, a conflict historian, oftentimes, let's say after the civil rights movement, like Howard Zinn or someone, right? What you're going to do is you're trying to convey the fact that history has been riddled with unjust conflicts and of interest between different demographics, and that certain demographics that have won, that have controlled politically, socially, and economically, have kind of won the power to dictate terms over other people, gained the majority of resources, etc. That you vilify them as like the bad guys won, and you try to elicit sympathy for all the different demographics or societal groups and categories that have, quote, lost, again, socially, politically, and or economically. And so at any rate, when you look at it like that, right, you're looking for conflict, you're looking for selfishness, you're looking for power grabs, right? You're looking for injustice. And if you want to look for that, you're going to be able to find it, right? And so you have that type of historiography or art and science of history. On the other end of the spectrum, you have court historians, right? COURT, like with the Chinese, right? Like when the Zhao dynasty took over from the Shang. What they try to do is they try to justify them beginning a new dynasty, right? And contend that the previous dynasty had lost its mandate from heaven, had lost its legitimate moral legs to stand upon, right? To become the legitimate ruler recognized by all in China. And so, hence, they're going to look for facts that justify the Zhao um, taking over, right, from the Shang. And so they're going to find data to do such. So they call that court history, like with the US, for instance, right? So court history praises those who have socially, politically, and economically, for lack of a better verb, have won, right? So politically, do you have a chance to run the levers of power and control things? Economically, do you have a lion's share of the resources, or better yet, do you have power to dictate economic cycles and practices, etc.? And then socially, are you able to dictate culture, values, normative behavior, how kids are socialized by their parents and teachers, etc.? So at any rate, court history will praise them and say how wonderful they were and how exceptional they were and how they earned their leadership spots and how they've made an exceptional country, right? And oftentimes, as you could guess, with exceptional country claims, that we are supposedly a land of great opportunity, equality of opportunity, generally for all, that we were a land of freedom, right? And autonomy of the individual to do as he or she, well chooses, pleases. And so that's an example of two kind of contradictory historiographical approaches, right? Conflict history or Marxist history, the bad guys won, and they want to elicit your sympathy for those who lost. Court history, those who won are the good guys, and we have an exceptionally special country that's uniquely a little bit better than the average country, and our leaders are wonderful, etc. Right? Then you have a little bit more of a benign way of looking at it, and you could look at it like as functional history. And with functional history, you don't look at winners and losers. You look at how we have become to this day, basically how things are, how the economy works, how wealth has been distributed, what our culture is like, how our kids are usually socialized, brought up, right, with normative behavior, etc., and values. And then you just simply say in an amoral fashion, how did we get here? How did we get to this spot? Like looking at a big tree and you think, okay, at one time it was a sapling and it began to grow slowly and it morphed through different stages of development before it became this huge oak tree. So likewise, we didn't get here by accident. Things as they are existing right now. So you look in the past and you try to find evidence of how things began to turn in the directions in which they did. So instead of looking at good guys and bad guys, winners and losers in history, right? What you do is you just simply say, well, as a kind of a hyperbolic, kind of exaggerating, going to the extreme example of how kind of amoral and neutral this type of history writing is. Slaves. So you know what? Slaves contributed, right, with the cash crop farming, with cotton going into textiles, etc. Slaves contributed this and this to the economy. And if it weren't for them and the slave labor out in the cash crop fields, this, and this would not have been done. All right. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but what are they looking over? What are they glossing over? What was it like to be a slave? How awful was it? Right? All of that stuff is kind of set aside, and they are, They're just simply looking at things as they have become, the way that they have become. So that's called functional history. So what I've gone over were three examples, right? Conflict history or conflict theory, functional history or functional theory, and chord history, or yeah, just that, chord history, right? Praising the winners and claiming that we are a special, exceptional country. So all those things are to be kept in mind when we are looking at these assignments, okay? And so I want to share the screen, and then I want to go back to this, okay? Because I still need to get everyone's names. I'm sorry, I'm so terrible at multitasking. And as I am looking into sharing the screen, if anyone wants to chime in either via a text message that kind of pops up at the bottom, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, by all means, in the next moment, jump right in. Okay, so notice what we have here, right? I will post numbered sections, each with a definitive argument conveyed and supported. You'll be asked to choose one or two, depending upon the assignment, sections, numbered sections, right, of interest to analyze and evaluate. To me, analyze is you pick it apart. Evaluate, you put value on it, right? So by that, I mean pick apart the section's primary argument and how it is being defended. Then defend your personal conclusion regarding just how credible you find that section's thesis to be, which is your evaluation, the value of how believable it seems. To be honest, I expect your written response in paragraph form to constitute at least a third to half a page and to include the following: an accurate citation of the section's thesis. So when I go over, several facts about Native Americans on a given number, uh, we'll get into that very quickly here. Okay, the very first assignment. Okay, so you look at it and say, okay, well, what's the main point? What is cohesively synthesizing all the stuff together, right? What's the main argument? You cite that right away in your response to me, and I know that you have intelligently analyzed it. You've intelligently picked it apart. You've dissected it and have discerned what my thesis was. Then give me at least one example, right, of what is going on as far as how it's being defended. And then once you do that, then evaluate it. Tell me why it is or is not. Okay, so where can we find the sections? Okay. Can we also respond on the chat? Yes. So please recall, I'm Generation X, guys. I'm certainly much older than a millennial. And so this, as far as being able to chat with one another, from what I understand from last semester, you are able to do that. If there's anything that needs to be, implemented on my side as the instructor, please let me know. And of course, I will do that. I encourage you guys to have chats and talk about the assignments together. That's great. Collaboration is perfectly fine with me. All right. The reason why you may not find these sections yet, I put it on. When I put today's date, it refuses to submit it and says you cannot put in a date prior to the semester, which drives me insanely, just frustratedly mad, because today technically is the first day of the semester. So it did not allow me to submit it until I put in the 15th, which to me is ridiculous. So at any rate, I'll try it again when I get done with this Zoom meeting. But for right now, that's the sad case in which it is. It's the same thing with the last day of the semester. Technically, what you see on the announcement that I gave you the penultimate, the second to last day of the semester to turn everything in, your last test, etc. Because the very last day, the system won't allow me to submit the very last day's date. Someone have a question or comment?
So
there's no way you can put it into like maybe like a Google Doc and then send it to us through the files,
A Google Doc and through the files.
like upload it on a module?
Google Doc on module. Okay. You know what? I will, yeah, I'll get on that as soon as we're done with this meeting. Okay, Destiny?
Gotcha.
So
But if that
what-
doesn't work out, then we'll be able to access those sections by tomorrow, you said?
that's right.
Gotcha.
Yes, so far the standard way on modules, like I
Yeah.
said, it would not submit it until I switch the date from today to tomorrow. which-
Okay, so we'll find those sections in modules tomorrow if
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah, because like I said, it's on my end already, but
yeah.
it wouldn't submit them until I switch the date from today to tomorrow, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Alrighty. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, whatever I find that I could do with the Google Docs on modules, I'm also wondering if I could even send it in a general announcement, like send you guys another announcement and send it as an attachment, or even copy and paste it inside
yeah.
inside the message. So one way or another, I will I'll send you guys another announcement. Okay, another class announcement to let you know what I was able to accomplish.
Thank you.
No, thank you, because you're in summer semester. You already have just a few days, sometimes only 2 days, to get a darn assignment done, and that just makes it much worse and much more frustrating when something like this happens. So let's see here. And I tell you what, if I'm not able to send it in any form until tomorrow, what I might do is just have its due date, as well as the second day's due date, the second assignment's due date, due the same day. So then you have an extra day or two, but you have to do both of them within that time period. But you have an extra day or two to do this. I think you'll find I do that very often in my classes. When something happens and arises and it renders you with fewer days, less time than I anticipated, and it makes life tougher for you, I end up compensating by changing something, pushing back a due date, et cetera, et cetera. I think you'll find that I try my best to be accommodating that way. I don't want any mistakes on my part or something beyond both of our control to make it a bigger burden for you. All right, so at any rate, please note that each section constitutes a thought-provoking argument that I have come across, right, in lecture, in a book, etc., and not necessarily what I personally conclude. Therefore, do not imbibe, right? Don't just take in the section's arguments as gospel truth, as I merely aim to provoke critical thinking and dialogue and not to indoctrinate. So note that, okay? Some of these I'm writing with tongue in cheek, kind of smiling, almost feeling as if I'm getting a chance to act, right? Where I'm just acting out this thesis. And I myself, I'm kind of chuckling because I'm like, oh man, there are several things I could say against my own thesis right here. So please always feel free to disagree with a section that you choose with its argument, but just first show that you have intelligently discerned what the thesis was, and then just rather briefly, what's the main manner by which that thesis is defended. Okay, a point or two, right, as far as data goes, a point or two as far as logic goes that was used to defend that thesis. And then thirdly, by all means, tear into it however you like. But tell me why, right? Your claim is only as good as your support, as far as why it is or is not very credible in your estimation. All right.
So for the sorry.
No, please,
So
please, go ahead.
for the analysis, we don't pick like a side, or rather we analyze what like the sections that we pick are talking about, right?
No, you know what? That's a great question, or Kyle. To me, it's a little bit of both. It's somewhere in between. is that yes, you are just focusing upon how credible, how balanced, how fair, right, is this thesis. But in the process of doing that, right, you could, of course, agree with the thesis, but just find its supporting data and its supporting logic to be lacking in an area or two, right? But very often, what happens to make the two dovetail is very often, from my experiences in the past, a student will disagree with the thesis. A student who finds the thesis not to be very credible is on the grounds by which the student does not agree with the thesis, period, and disagrees. So you know what I mean? The main point you're still trying to convey is not necessarily just outright what you think on the subject. It ought to be how credible the thesis is. But in doing that, very, very often, you are going to demonstrate what you think of the subject. Did I make that clear at all? Probably not.
Yeah, a bit. I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, so the basis upon which you have disagreed, let's say hypothetically, with the thesis of a given section is oftentimes going to convey where you personally stand. And that's great. That's fine. I love for you to incorporate personal conviction, personal conclusions to this.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So I'm on Canvas right now and I'm looking at like the syllabus.
Right.
It says on a majority of this stuff is due on July 17th, but they have like additional like different due dates like on them as well. I don't know which one I'm supposed to follow on them.
Oh shoot! I am so sorry. Yeah, you know, Rose, what you follow is that 17th date. See what I do, right? I think I like to think it justify my actions that most instructors do is I don't start from scratch, you know, on any given semester with a syllabi, right? I don't reinvent the wheel. I go to a previous semester syllabus, look at it, change the dates, change a few things, and that's that. So the 17th is indeed the day in which I want you to have submitted your quizzes by midnight of the 17th of July. Okay, so when they have an earlier date or later date for that matter at the bottom of that schedule, it's because I failed to erase it from the right section of that column, from the right column in describing what the assignment is. And I apologize for that. That's coming from a previous syllabus, a previous semester syllabus. So follow, ignore what's in the right section and adhere to what I put in boldface, that all 6 quizzes on the textbook are due the 17th of July.
Another question was, the course syllabus only states all of the assignments. It doesn't really show like how you grade and stuff like that. There's no text or anything.
Yeah, as far as my criterion, I tell you what I also will do in addition to the instructions, I've done this once before and I believe I've saved it, is I will add on under modules again, I'll add on a page that gives a much more concrete look at my criteria. Okay. I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. By the way, in the chat, people were talking about how they don't have the textbook right now because it wasn't put in the Delta bookstore.
Yes. Yeah, no, I did not put it in the Delta bookstore, but what was it, a week or two ago, I sent everyone an announcement asking you guys to grab one. And so just aware of that. Like I said, I'm giving you guys until the 17th. I'm giving you a month and 3 days even after the beginning of the semester, to grab one. Okay, so I apologize that I had not done it through the Delta bookstore. I apologize for that. On the other hand, I'm hoping, as far as making lemonade out of crushed lemons, finding a as I put in the announcement to you guys, finding a used one on Amazon, etc. You will find it to be much cheaper, much more affordable.
So this book is actually, it's not available at Delta at all.
I know, not unless another instructor is using it.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
Yeah, I
have
mean,
no
because
idea.
I already ordered it on Amazon, but I mean, it would be better if I were able to pick it up from Delta, but if it's not available, then I'll just wait till it comes in.
Yeah, I'm very sorry that I didn't
Okay.
use Delta, okay?
Thank you.
And so no problem. But again, I mean, this constitutes another example of what I try to implement and even promise my students, that whatever happens beyond our control, that puts a glitch in things, whatever I fail to do or do wrongly, I never intend, I intend to do everything I can to make sure that you do not suffer for it. And so, like I said, hence I'm waiting until the 17th of July to have you, um, submit your quizzes. So thank you and sorry. Okay.
My Canvas wasn't unlocked until today, so I couldn't see the announcement before.
Yeah, same.
here.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I wish the system would notify me of that. It doesn't notify that to me. And so I was under the impression that everyone received it. Okay, I will, I'd rather do too much than too little. I'll resend it for sure. Okay, I'll make a note to myself right now.
I have a question. So you said that all the quizzes are due July 17th, right?
Yes.
So, but the assignments have different due dates, right? Like for this one, I saw that it was due the day after tomorrow.
Yes, and that is true. The very first one.
Okay, so I don't have my book yet, and I'm pretty sure it's not gonna come by the day after. So is there like a place online that has like the sections or like a Google Doc?
Oh gosh, you know what? I'm not familiar with if there is an online source. I've been told by students that they have been able to do that, but note, right? These assignments are absolutely independent from the textbook. So I'm glad that you asked that, Markyle, because I want to make that clear. I should have made that clear already. Here's my philosophical approach, if you will, to the class. Okay. Utility. If there is no use in my class and of being any practicable help to your life, then I don't want to teach history anymore. And so hence, making you critically think, having you as a citizen of our republic, right? Uh, Learn and hone your skills, not to simply imbibe what you read, but to dissect it, to pick it apart, to look at its strengths and weaknesses, to look at its perhaps fallacies of logic, to look at its assumptions that perhaps should not be taken for granted. Um, to have you do that and critically look at what you read, to me, is worthwhile for you as a citizen of the republic. Machiavelli, he's known for The Prince, but he also wrote The Republic, where he took that stance of telling people to be vigilant in a republic, to be mindful of what they read and what their government tells them, etc. Right, and to critically analyze and evaluate it. Of course, Thomas Jefferson and others later on. So to me, right, it makes class more interesting and it makes it more vital to your life, regardless of what you do for a living and what you major in, if I put it in this type of argumentative format. I feel like now suddenly I could go to bed at night thinking, well, at least there is some utility uh, to my class for all of my students, regardless of the vocational direction in which they're going. Then also, I like to think that it makes it a little bit more interesting uh, to read a thesis about Thomas Jefferson as to why he had democratic tastes and tie it to psychological issues he had with his parents. You'll see that on a number. I just find that intriguing rather than dryly saying, okay, in 1807, he and Congress passed the Embargo Act. And in this year, you know, a lot. To me, there's no utility in that. So that's why the majority of your points will emanate from these argumentative sections. All right. But then, so technically, what you do on this given assignment, you don't need any extraneous help. I don't expect you to know to pull from and utilize any outside data from a textbook, from a lecture, etc. Okay. I take for granted that whatever data I use to support the thesis in that given section might be all the data you know and are now familiar with on that subject. Again, it's more about you intelligently discerning the thesis, discerning how well it is defended, etc. Right? Then, however, I of course believe that you can't have good discourse. You can't have, in more competitive sense, good dialogue on a given topic about why we fought the Civil War, right? What constitutes Americana? What does our country stand for, right? Something kind of subjective, argumentative, like that. You can't engage in that type of discourse well if you don't have the basic building blocks of what happened and when. So therefore, while my highest priority is to get you to critically think, it doesn't stop there. I understand and respect from history that you need to have a basic knowledge of the chronology of what happened when, right? So that you can then utilize that knowledge of basically for placement. Okay, this happened in this year. I find that to be supportive of this argument. This data right here that's sitting here seems to suggest the validity of that assumption or that historian's claim. And so you need to have the building blocks of what happened basically when. So therefore, I have you get a textbook, and the textbook is much less. It's a terrible way of articulating it. Just it's not as argumentatively based as you're going to find these assignments. It's drier. It gives more of a dry chronology. Now, does he incorporate assumptions as far as like causation, what caused what? Absolutely. So there's some subjective argument put into it. But by very nature, right, a textbook doesn't want to step on too many toes, kind of like a politician. And so it tries to stay as middle of the road as possible and just dryly give details of the facts in chronological fashion. So that's why I ask you to read the textbook and hold you accountable for that by taking textbook quizzes. Okay, so that you gain familiarity as a foundation, as a background, as far as what basically happened in this given time period under this given subject, etc. Right? And then thirdly, is I try to blend those two approaches on your tests. Every 4 to 5 subjects, 3 different times. Okay. I give you a kind of a Scantron based test, but not really with a Scantron. You submit it electronically under quizzes. But some of the questions are merely factual to just make sure that you have a basic command of what happened under a given time period and topic, etc. And some of the questions are historiographical, whereby they're asking, about a specific interpretation or at least 2 different interpretations to the same topic and what might be supportive of that given interpretation and what might run counter to that interpretation, etc. So put those together, and that constitutes my humble philosophy to my little class and my little corner of the world. All right. So are there any questions on that? So I'll tell you what, as we're sharing still, let's take a look at the pre-Columbian, before Columbus, Native Americans. So for instance, number one, right? I kind of do a granted but approach, right? So I say, on the one hand, science has impressively, metaphorically, turned on some lights in the darkness that is ignorance of the past regarding Native Americans before written records. Okay. And then I try to support that with data, dendrochronology, carbon-14 dating, stratigraphy, thermoluminescence dating, etc. I try to show the extent to which they've been able to provide us these scientific and other methods have been able to provide us with a rough outline, a hypothesis, if you will, right? An educated guess as far as forming a narrative as to what's the early history of Native Americans long before the Europeans came. Okay. Then I say, however, I do the classic 180, right? The granted but approach. But it's only gone so far. It's an incomplete picture. The answers are tentative hypotheses and certainly not laws of nature that we could take for granted as gospel truth. Certain conclusions that scientists and academia felt very certain about have subsequently been refuted in the future and found to be incorrect. So hence, right, look at like the last sentence, I believe. While science has made some astoundingly impressive inferences, right, educated guesses from data or results of empirical research and testing, it is not and perhaps cannot render a definitive account of Native American history before Columbus's arrival. So science can only take us so far. All right. So take a look at that. Tell me what the thesis was, should you choose number one. Tell me some example or two of data that's used to support that thesis. And then tell me why you find this thesis to be or not to be fair, complete, credible. All right. And please let me make it clear as well, if I haven't yet, all right, is that it is in your best interest, every assignment, to read every single section. I literally, again, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I think this is a literal truth. I'm pretty sure that every single number on every single assignment is relevant and vital to at least one question on any of the three tests. So I didn't waste a single section. They're all relevant to the subsequent test in one way or another. All right, number two. Native Americans, right? The old manifest destiny history, right? That the Americas were virtually res nullius, right? That's a Latin term, basically empty domain, open for the public and the general welfare to come and claim, right? Well, how sparsely populated were the Americas? According to different statistical conclusions today, they were pretty densely populated. So that doesn't seem to hold true, that it was a vacant land. And by the way, as an aside, even if it were, hypothetically, which it seems to not have been, but even if it had been sparsely populated, does that give moral and legal justification of taking the land from them because it was sparsely populated? At any rate, just a little aside there. Then also, Native Americans have been put into at least um, two sides of a spectrum. I'm sure many more than these two, but these are the main two that I've always come across and mentioned in class. All right. One is known as prelapsarian innocence. Like Adam and Eve in the biblical narrative before the fall in the Garden of Eden, where they were naked and they didn't know it because they were innocent like children. They were innocent of evil, right? According to the biblical account. So hence, Christopher Columbus, he writes when he sees the Arawak and the Taino and the Caribs, but especially the Arawak in the Caribbean, runs into that tribe, right, with his Spaniards. He says they came in naked as the day they were born. They walk around and they feel no shame about it. They grab our swords out of ignorance and cut their hands. They claim that our guns, our harquebuses, right, are magical sticks that shoot out God-given fire. They credulously give gold and silver and jade for little trinkets that aren't worth a darn thing. And it's so easily done to exploit them. They don't really know weaponry and arms. He says, if we just keep 50 men here on the island, we could take care of this entire island here in the Caribbean that he named San Salvador. Notice, right, this condescending view that Native Americans are like cute little innocent children. And so therefore, right, what has happened so often in human history, when one group, especially that is technologically and militarily more powerful than another, views that other in a condescending way as being childlike, dependent upon his help, etc., right? Thus begins a very paternalistic relationship. I think of like the Spanish missions, right? We are like your father. We're going to kindly teach you the proper ways of civilization, etc., right? And so that's going to have its own consequences. So that's one way of looking at Native Americans when you find the English chroniclers and Spaniards who came, interacted with Native Americans, and wrote in their Euro language an account, right, of their observations and their experiences. You know, kind of like a participant observer in anthropology. Those are known as chronicles. So at any rate, in the chronicles, they oftentimes deal with Native Americans in a patronizing way as childlike and innocent, or of course, as savage and devil-like. And we'll get into some of the discourse back in Spain itself on this subject very soon. All right. And so, and that they were, of course, in one way or another, that they were primitive, that they were archaic, right? Like from an old Stone Age, way behind times. Number two, right? The writer tries to refute that. Say, okay, on the one hand, here's a convenient stereotype of Native Americans, right? Convenient in that it justifies taking land from them. However, in light of this data, and the writer tries to give some data, right? Clearly that doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold up, that convenient stereotype. So number two is supportive of Native Americans, supportive of how, of refuting that stereotype, those stereotypes. Then number three, okay, please note this for number three is I've had some people say, okay, I disagree with number three because there is no right, there's no ethical, moral right for anyone to look down upon Native Americans just because of their different religious practices and their different notions of property. Okay. I would be the first to agree with them. To me, that's an axiom. That's an assumption that you just is a given. You don't even need to debate. But that's not the point with number three. The point is however unethical, however unfair it is, it happened. It happened nevertheless. That because of certain attributes, certain facets of Native American beliefs and culture, the Euro Americans began to hold them in disdain, to arrogantly presume in superiority over them. So what were those beliefs? Why did the Euro Americans look down upon them for those specific beliefs? And is there enough data and logic to support that argument? And of course, Mark Kyle, is what do you think of it, of that thesis? As I expect that to be incorporated one way or another into your response. All right. So anyone have any questions on numbers 1 through 3? Just generally what I'd like you to look for. All right.
Will we be able to access these documents tomorrow?
Yes, like I said, at the very least, you're going to be able to access them tomorrow. If you cannot access them until tomorrow, I'm going to give the same due date for assignments 1 and 2. And please remember, in moving one back to the time of another, okay, please remember that firstly, I have a certain number of subjects, right, that I am kind of almost legally bound to teach as your instructor of 17A in a given time frame. And this summer time frame is very, very brief and truncated. So I can't keep pushing one date and then that pushes the next date back and the next date back. And we have one fewer topics that we end up covering. So please note that. And please note also, as I consider it also practice for you guys in college, to be able to maturely organize your time so that you can, like I did with the quizzes. I sure as heck hope you don't wait until the 17th of July to engage in all 6 of your quizzes, right? That would that could hurt your scores because it put everything in haste, right? So I expect you to do a couple of them by July 3rd, a couple more by the 11th, and then do the last few by the 17th, whatever it might be. So likewise, If you don't get this assignment until tomorrow, I'm going to move it back to the same due date as number 2 and assume that in this time, you're not going to wait until the day that both of them are due to submit both of them. All right. So, I need to get your names. So remember, each time, so for those of you who are here, assignment number 1, I'm going to give you a score out of 50. Okay. Whatever that score is, I'm going to add to it for you. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at my names here. I am going to add 5 points. And days where I go on and on for a very long extended time, in the past, I've even given 10 points that I add to your score for being present. All right. So as I am doing this, are there
I have
any
a question.
questions, you guys?
Oh, yeah. So for all of the meetings that we have, will you just send like an announcement for whenever we have like the Zoom link?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. And I plan on having all the meetings at this time, every Monday at 1 o'clock. All right. And please always be aware of your Canvas messages, as that's the main manner by which I'm going to try to keep in touch with you. Sorry for the dead time, guys. Again, I'm the world's worst multitasker. I want to make sure everyone gets credit who's here today. So anyone taking more than one class?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
How many?
I am. I'm taking 2.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
too.
really?
I have 2 history classes.
My goodness. Yeah, with summer term, that's impressive. It really is, because it's so compact. Just putting this together, I'm thinking, okay, I got to cover the following subjects. And then you squeeze in the number of days. You're like, are you kidding me? I'm going to have an assignment. Like, I'm going to have an assignment due like every other day.
Some people say they have 3.
Oh my goodness. I could not even imagine. And do some of you have jobs currently right now as well?
Yes.
Man, hats off to you. Yeah, I was able to almost completely split my education between not having a job when I did my first 2 or 3 years and just focus on being a student, and then having to work. And my goodness, it is a night and day difference. And so hats off. I've had students that would come to my Zoom meetings, and I could see this gentleman hiding behind a shelf, and he's wearing his employer's hat and shirt, his place of employment, and he was just taking like a break.
I'm at work right now. That's funny.
Are you really, Jesus?
Yeah, I got 4 classes this summer.
Oh my goodness, how are you doing that?
But I mean,
I wish you luck.
I work for myself, so I make my own schedule, so that
Oh,
helps.
good. Well, that's still impressive, Jesus. Honestly,
Yeah. I
hats
mean,
off
hey,
to you.
I got a 3-year-old daughter, and then I got another one on the way, so
Oh my goodness,
gotta wait.
you're a busy man. That's awesome. Like I said, yeah, hats off. There's all the difference in the world when you add those extra responsibilities to being a full-time student. Uh, yeah, I can't tell you how proud that makes me feel, Jesus, not even having met you yet. That's awesome.
Thank you.
But yeah, so again, I'll do everything I can, guys, to jump onto my Canvas messages and catch up with those today, this afternoon. And again, so like when I do the second subject on the Spanish, please note, as you know, the schedule's pretty compact. If I do it every Monday, um, that's not going to suffice for all to be able to cover all the subjects. And so I'm also just going to use, I use kind of primitive, probably means, but I'm going to do like Screencastify that's on my computer, do a lecture video of the next 1 or 2 subjects, and post it under modules up at the top section, along with the meetings. So one way or another, I will have a video posted, whether it's like on a Monday, like this, or just doing it on my own in my house and posting it for you, so that you'll get a little bit of my 2 cents, if you will, um, regarding every assignment and topic that we cover. All right.
Professor, question here. So the attachment that you're saying is that you're going to attach this Word document as we're looking at section 1 slash option. That would be for the second one.
No, what I'm going to do is what I mentioned, I believe, unless I misheard you, and I'm sorry, I was finishing writing, but I'm going to, I know for one, someone asked me to familiarize you guys with my criteria that I use. So notice I have instructions on there. Then I also have the first assignment. I'll also put a sheet up regarding my criteria as far as what I look for, what I consider to be, you know, a roughly 47 to 50 out of 50, or roughly 44 through 46 out of 50, and exactly what I find to be a little bit, lacking in the latter instance. So it gives you a better sense of what I'm expecting.
Yeah, so I would look at that as the rubric, but what I'm asking is for this Word doc itself, as an attachment, would you put that in the module? So let's say you send this Word, specifically this Word doc, you would send it as enabled editing. That way we could all see the instructions, the sections themselves, and go based off of that, and then use your video, as you're saying?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, on my end, this is already there. But yeah, it wouldn't allow it to be, shown to you until tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good question. All right. So anybody else? Anybody else, you guys? All right. So please use Canvas message to message me. Should you have any other questions? Like I said, my primary means will be through announcements in Canvas. Go ahead.
I had an issue with my Canvas. Is it all right if I stay behind and talk to you?
Of course. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
One more question, Professor. So we get
Yeah.
5 points today for being on the Zoom meeting, and which ones will you said mentioned 10 points for another Zoom meeting?
Yes, like I said, that's mainly when I go in excessively long fashion. You'll find in the future there'll be a couple like Southern colonies which is the third assignment, Antebellum West, or Causes of the Civil War. I can't remember which one of them I do. That just I end up going on and on, and so I kind of improvise at that moment, to be honest. And it's been like an hour and a half since I had begun, and I'm looking at my list of participants, and I'm just impressed and I'm grateful. And I'll tell you on the spot and say, you know what, guys, I'm writing down on notes on my end. I'm giving you 10 rather than 5 points on this assignment. So this
Okay,
first
great. Thank
assignment,
you.
right? You guys are all getting 5 points added to it on Native Americans.
Thank you.
Pre-Columbian. Yeah, no problem. Your questions are great. I'm sure they're clarifying things for all of us. So feel free to continue. Absolutely. Anybody else? All right.
For the quizzes,
Yes.
just so for the quizzes, they all say they're all due on the same day, but we are able to just open it before then, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad that you asked that. Yes. Yeah, by all means, you could submit them today. They should be available right now. So absolutely, like I was mentioning, right, with moving due dates back, that absolutely, when you have several things due on the same day, I take for granted that you're going to economize your time and do them incrementally. So absolutely, I would greatly encourage you to begin submitting quizzes as early as today. All right. Anybody else? Okay, so that's Marilyn James, no problem. All right, anybody else?
Yes, Professor. Actually, since we won't have access to this, you said at least by tomorrow, or it could be within the next hour or two. Are you just able to email this or just post it individually?
Yeah,
If
you know
that would
what?
work.
I hadn't thought about that either. Let's see here, post individually. So I'll tell you what, I will, yeah, as soon as we're done, I'm going to look into those options. To be honest, my first inclination, because it's probably not the most convenient for you, but my first inclination is to do it by way of an announcement and either put it as an attachment to the announcement, or maybe even double up and copy and paste it into the announcement itself, as well as attach it.
Okay.
But one way or another, you'll know what I was or was not able to do by way of an announcement today.
Okay.
I
Is
have a
there a
question.
set time frame for that yet?
Sorry.
Or oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I could tell you that I will give you an announcement by 3 o'clock. I could do it within the hour for sure.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh yeah, I had a question. So does your submission need to be in like MLA format or anything like that, or is it just we just
Oh
do
yeah,
this?
I don't. Yeah, I grew up in the '90s on the MLA format, and so that's wonderful. But I don't sweat that stuff at all.
Okay.
I'm constantly cognizant of the fact that this is a history class, not an English class, and so I'm looking at, yeah, I'm looking at your responses, how well you analyze and evaluate, and I don't sweat that at all. But
Yeah.
thank you for
Okay.
asking. Because again, that clarifies things for everybody by asking me that. Okay. Well, it's nice to meet you. Okay. I will go ahead and call it a day. You will get an announcement from me within the hour. I tell you what, I'll do it by 3 o'clock, probably even much sooner than that. If everyone would please go ahead and exit with the exception of Marilyn James, so that she could have some privacy in asking me questions about the class. Okay. So thank you. You guys have a great day.
Bye,
Wait,
everyone.
Did you get everyone's name down for the points?
I did.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So, hi, Professor. Unfortunately, I was having an issue with my Okta account. It's not working for me. So, because of that, I can't actually access my Canvas.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
I
Do you know how to fix that, hun? Do you know what?
No, unfortunately, I don't know what went wrong, and my password isn't working. I tried to reactivate the account, but the activation thing has already expired. So I sent them a thing on the Delta. There's a chat on the Delta website, but I haven't gotten a response yet.
Okay. Yeah, and have you tried to, well, it might be the same department that you just mentioned, but you've gotten online, right, and looked into like those who are in charge of technology and tried to,
Uh, I'm not too familiar with the system because I'm still a high school student,
oh, okay.
but I saw that there was a help thing on their website and that they said they'd send me a message as soon as somebody in the team could take care of it.
I see. Okay, well, that's good. Um, yeah, I still will try to be proactive as you're awaiting this, and just even going to the general. Let me see if I have it on my phone. So I know I've had to do that before. To go to Delta's uh, main site and look for. See here. Hmm. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Marilyn, what I'll try to do is I'll try to find out information for you as far as a phone number and or an email to reach out to, because
Mm-hmm.
with how quickly this semester goes by, we got to we got to rectify this as soon as possible.
Yeah. Should I leave you my personal email since I can't actually access my?
Yes, absolutely, please.
Okay. Okay, so I just put it in the chat. That's my personal.
All right, let's see here. Oh, okay, see it here. Okay, great, great, great. So yeah, we'll get on this. And then needless to say, Marilyn, to whatever extent that you're not able to, to get on here to be able to even get the assignment, much less to submit it into Canvas, I'll grant you an exception and turn it in later for full credit.
Thank you so much.
All right. So yeah, no problem. Well, but please, because I'm doing this, don't just wait yourself. Like look in and see what you can do too. Okay. Well, let's both.
Luckily, I have a friend in the class. Yeah, luckily I have a friend in the class and she's been updating me on what's been happening. That's how I got the Zoom link for today's meeting.
Oh, good.
So hopefully I can stay on top of the work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, good, Marilyn. You will receive an email from me soon.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye. You're welcome. Gurjeet, did you have a question? Hello, Gurjeet. You're muted if you're trying to say something. But anything at all that I could help you with before I leave? I'd be happy to. If you're trying to speak, if you could at least try to type something. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that you had inadvertently somehow failed to get off, but are not presently here with me. All right, Gurjeet, you take care, okay?